get set. Where them hands, where them holes, where them throws, you know what I'm saying? See,
And while they were here, they always wore masks.
Rather than stating this on Facebook, I figured I'd make a video about it. And rather than give the full details about who said what to inspire this, I'm not going to do that either. I'm just going to talk about the idea because I don't want anybody to think that I have a problem with their approach or what they're doing because I actually see both sides of this point. And I have conditions what for which side I favor. So let me start off first by saying what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the idea of coaching people in a match. So if it's a martial arts contest, doesn't really matter the style. Should the coach the athlete? That's the question. Some people say yes, the coach shouldn't. Some people say no, the coach shouldn't. Well, I say it depends. And let me start off by saying this. Excuse me. If we're talking about a professional contest with professional athletes, oh yeah, I think a coach should coach the athlete because I look at really true pro level matches, like professional boxing matches, MMA matches, you know, for profit, for money. That stuff is more a team against a team. The athlete just happens to be the athlete. That's the athlete's role. I look at it as that whole team against that other team. So, yeah, when there's money on the line and there's sponsors and things like that, of course, coach them. That's not real fighting, but it's high stakes and it's very important. So if you're talking about pros, of course, coach the athlete during the match. That should go without saying. So this doesn't really apply to pros. Where I can see there could be some debate is if you're teaching people at the amateur level where there's no money involved, and you want to say this is character building over preparing students for real fights. So I typically, when I was coming up the ranks, I was not coached. First of all, because a lot of times we were at a place where either the teachers are not allowed to coach the students during the match, or it turns out that my instructors were doing the judging. So of course they weren't allowed to coach me during the match. And then when I went from like the punch kick side and I started going into the grappling side, the first two teachers I had when I came back to grappling as a grown person said, I don't want to coach you. I want you to figure out how to think for yourself. And I kind of didn't like it a little bit at first, but I didn't really care because there was no money on the line. And I figure it would be kind of a challenge and appeal to my inner nerd to figure out how to do these moves under pressure. So I didn't have a problem with it. And I did it. I was like, I'm going to figure out. And what they would do, though, is after the match, they tell me, well, you should have done this, you should have tried that, and give me pointers then, but not during the match. Because they were of the idea of, if you ever have to use this stuff for real, I'm not going to be there. So, when I first became coach, I coached, especially when I was going for my judo coaching certifications, I coached my kids through their matches because, just a couple times, because I wanted to get that coaching experience. But after a while, if I wasn't their primary teacher and that teacher didn't want to coach them, I would go along with that. If the teacher did want to coach them, I would go along with that. I could go, either way. So where I ultimately land on the issue is this. I see both sides. If your goal is to use the martial arts as a vehicle to prepare them for a real fight and to teach them how to go after things under pressure, then I can see why you wouldn't want to coach them at the match. And a lot of times, especially in the DC area, they don't, and Taekwondo matches, they typically, and the ones I've been to, they don't necessarily allow the coach to coach the athlete during the match. So if you're not allowed to, it's not going to happen anyway. And yes, I see the wisdom in not coaching them, letting them think for themselves, trusting them so they can feel confident in what you've taught them and let them figure that out for themselves. Okay, that's fine. I also see the wisdom in if you want to coach them while they're on the mat. Because having, could say, so I say when they're on the mat because that is more where I see people coaching the athlete. But let me tell you, it is difficult being coached while you're on the mat, while you're in the ring, and it's also difficult not being coached. Okay? Where I think it doesn't really matter either way is if you know that the person that the student that you're training, if you know they've already been in some real fights, then the whole point of the teacher is not going to be there to coach them is moot because they've already protected themselves for real anyway. So you don't have to worry about them being able to function without you there. They can do it. Plus, instincts will take over. So, if you're worried about them being able to think for themselves, either way, whether you coaching them through it or not, just the experience of being in the tournament is going to force them to have to think under pressure, whether they're listening to you or not. So to me, it ultimately doesn't really matter whether you coach them through the match or not. It all depends upon the rules. If the rules say you can coach them, coach them. If the rules say you can't coach them, don't coach them. But if there's money on the line, in professional level bouts where there's money on the line, you're talking about, or even something in the Olympics where there's sponsors and stuff like that, that's a horse of a different color because I know that's not a real fight, but that's more of a livelihood. Okay, so in that instance, and this is just my opinion here, and keep in mind, I'm just some part timer who's got a YouTube channel. Okay, my opinion, I would want to be coached. If I ever had the opportunity where I could get millions of dollars if I win and less millions of dollars if I lose, please coach me because I want as much money as possible. That's how I would feel. Yes, fine. I want you to get in there and whatever. But when there's a lot of money on the line and I got to pay all these people afterwards before I even get my cut, and you can tell me something to beat this person, I would assume if I'm at that level, I've been studying film and been getting in the best condition I've ever been in my life and all that stuff. Please coach me. So, bottom line, there's value on both sides of the whole should you coach an athlete doing a tournament thing. It all depends. And I would say it all depends on what's best for your athlete. I was just thinking, maybe if you got a hothead athlete who needs to be told to calm down so, they don't end up putting somebody in a hospital over a tournament, maybe they could benefit from some coaching during the match. I'm just saying, in the end, the process is what I think is important. Them getting up, trying it out, win or lose, that's what's going to make them a better martial artist or a better athlete and hopefully a better person. Thanks for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe. Be shares with people like to talk about the martial arts. In peace. And as always, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.